first 10 minutes of the block and then have the minister answer my questions in the final 10 minutes?
Yeah, absolutely. Please proceed.
Well, thank you, Chair, and I'd like to thank the Minister and the departmental staff for being here today. I look forward to welcoming the Minister at the Lakeland College Gala in Lloydminster next Friday evening. And I should tell the Minister I'm actively trying to quash widespread rumors that the Minister will join the Chair of Lakeland's Board of Governors and the local MLA in a rousing accordion trio rendition of Lady of Spain. So my questions today will largely revolve around the decision announced last October that the province of Alberta will be withdrawing from the four-province agreement to fund the Western College of Veterinary Medicine, or WCVM, at the University of Saskatchewan in Saskatoon. Now, this agreement has served the people of Alberta for over 54 years. Over half of the veterinarians currently practicing in Alberta are WCVM alumni, and I'm proud to say that both my wife and I are graduates of the WCVM. Now, I want to say from the outset that I support the decision to expand the number of students at the University of Calgary Faculty of Veterinary Medicine from 30 per year to 50 per year. This decision makes both academic and financial sense. Veterinary colleges are expensive, and a vet school with only 120 students carries a very high per-student cost. It makes sense to reduce this overall cost by expanding the UCVM. But the decision to end Alberta funding for the WCVM and withdraw from participation with our Western provincial neighbors makes neither academic nor financial sense. It is seriously flawed. It is bad for our livestock industry. It is bad for Alberta veterinary students. It is bad for rural communities. It is bad for veterinary education. In short, it is bad for Alberta. And it does absolutely nothing to contribute to this government's oft-repeated mantra of making life better for Albertans. First, let's have some history. The WCVM was established in 1964 by agreement between the four Western provinces in order to provide veterinary education in Western Canada. Now, seeing how this government has raised the practice of criticizing decisions of past governments to an art form, I will take up that torch and note that Edmonton was being actively considered as the location of the Western Veterinary College until then Premier Ernest Manning infamously called such an institution a white elephant, while Saskatchewan Premier Ross Thatcher offered $1 million if the college was located in Saskatoon. Now, prior to this time, Western Canadians had to enroll at the Ontario Veterinary College in Guelph. The first class of WCVM graduated in 1969, and since that time, hundreds of Albertans have attended that school. Now, while there, we have the opportunity to meet and work with colleagues from across Western Canada, and we established lifelong collaborative professional relationships that have benefited all four of the Western provinces. The veterinary community is a relatively small one. These relationships have provided untold dollar value to the food animal production industry in Western Canada. The University of Saskatchewan is unique in that its campus includes world-leading organizations like VITO, the Veterinary Infectious Disease Organization, the Canadian Light Source Synchrotron, and the Livestock and Forage Center for Excellence, all of which collaborate with WCVM. The UCVM Spy Hill campus, in contrast, is surrounded by 3 correctional facilities and a gravel pit. All of this is lost when Alberta withdraws from the four-province agreement. When the UCVM was first proposed in 2004, Alberta veterinarians raised concerns about ongoing secure funding for the WCVM in Saskatoon. We were assured, guaranteed in fact, by the Minister of the day that the province would never withdraw from the four-province agreement supporting the WCVM, and that the province recognized the benefit of having access to 2 different veterinary colleges. And I might point out that withdrawing this access flies directly in the face of pillar number 5, that of coordination and allowing Alberta students a diversity of educational opportunities. Now, I know that the minister and his government have been vocally critical of previous governments, but I would like to know why the solemn assurance given by one of his predecessors has now been reneged on. Alberta has historically received more than its share for its investment in the WCVM. While we fund 20 students per year, consistently more than that number from each graduating class end up working in Alberta. For the past 4 years, for example, while we paid for 80 students, 97 graduates of WCVM end up practicing in Alberta. By withdrawing from this agreement, we are telling our provincial neighbors that we expect them to fully fund the education of the WCVM, but that their graduates will still come to Alberta at a time when we should be seeking more cooperation, not less, with our provincial neighbors. That move is a negative. But many livestock producer groups have expressed deep concern with this decision. The Alberta beef producers wrote the minister on October 20th expressing concern about the total lack of consultation with industry, as well as concern for unintended consequences of this decision. Now, I would like to know what response, if any, the minister has provided to the Alberta beef producers. This decision will hurt rural Alberta. Veterinarians working in mixed practices in communities serving both large and small animal patients are vital to the communities in which they live. The WCVM has historically provided most of these veterinarians. In fact, about 60% of the graduates from WCVM go into rural mixed practice. Now, in contrast, only 18% of UCVM graduates from the first 6 years have gone into rural mixed practice, and less than 7% are in exclusively food animal practice. Some 55% have gone into urban, exclusively small animal practices. If all of our veterinarians in the future come from the UCVM, where will the vets that we need to serve our growing livestock industries come from? Where will we find the ones that will provide health assurance for beef, dairy, pork, poultry, and other livestock? Where will these graduates come from? And so my questions, Mr. Chair, to the minister. First, what response have you been given to the Alberta students who were planning on studying veterinary medicine and specifically were planning on attending WCVM? And there are over 450 applicants every year of Alberta students trying to get one of the 50 spots in veterinary college. Number two, why are you taking the ability to choose between two complementary veterinary programs, each with their own strengths and weaknesses, away and forcing all Alberta students seeking veterinary education to enroll at the UCVM? Number three, given the much higher likelihood of WCVM graduates going into rural mixed practices as compared to UCVM graduates, with future Alberta veterinary students only being trained at UCVM, where will all our rural mixed animal practitioners come from? Does the minister realize that he could very well be creating a similar situation in veterinary medicine as currently exists in human medicine, where rural communities in Alberta have become largely dependent on foreign-trained medical graduates to provide health care services? 4, given the significant demand for veterinarians, there are over 80 advertised positions in the Alberta Veterinary Medical Association newsletter for veterinarians, and the projected labor market demand going forward is for 1,100 additional veterinarians by 2023, 5 years from now. And given that your decision adds precisely 0 additional seats to veterinary education for Albertans, how is this step going to help meet the demand for veterinarians in Alberta? 5, why was there absolutely no consultation with either the WCVM, the Alberta Veterinary Medical Association, or key livestock producer groups like the Alberta beef producers prior to this decision being made? 6, there's considerable doubt that the UCVM will be able to find spaces for an additional 20 students in their distributed veterinary learning community model. Given that the UCVM has no teaching hospital, what will happen if only 40 or 45 student placement positions for the final year of clinical training are secured? Where will these additional students obtain their veterinary clinical training? 7, the announcement last October indicated a $3.3 million cut to veterinary education for Alberta students. But the minister has not announced how much will be needed to be spent on capital expenditures to expand the Spy Hill campus to accommodate a 67% increase in class size. And I know that faculty there are waiting to have that number. I can't find the number in any of the budget documents. It isn't included in the capital plan. So what is that capital cost estimate, or is it a situation where it is just not known yet? And finally, a question that I've been asked many times, and I want to give the minister an opportunity to respond on the record. This government's open disdain for, at that time, Premier Wall's government in Saskatchewan is well known. Was the decision to withdraw from the four-province agreement driven by a desire to thumb our noses at the government of Saskatchewan? Mr. Chair, obviously I'm passionate about the veterinary profession and about veterinary education. And it's not often that a decision that we make here in the legislature has long-term, decades-long consequences. This decision will have that effect. $8 million is what it costs to provide Albertans access to a world-class veterinary education system, and I ask the minister not to end that, and I look forward to hearing his answers.
All right. Well, thank you, Dr. Starkey, for your questions. I'm sure that the people of Lakeland College are relieved to hear that we won't be serenading them with accordions. And hopefully attendance will go up now that we've cleared those rumors. With respect to your questions, so we were, of course, focusing on enhancing accessibility and maintaining sustainability in the funding system for our university and college system. And certainly the decision to redirect the funding from the Western College of Veterinary Medicine to the U of C Vet Medicine program was looked at through both of those lenses, enhancing accessibility, of course, for Alberta students, as well as making some smart savings in expenditures. So the program at the Western College of Veterinary Medicine was significantly more expensive than the program at the University of Calgary on a per-student basis. So we end up saving almost $3 million a year, and yet are still able to train the same number of veterinary medical students. So we think that this is a smart investment to make. When we can train the same number of students for less money, we think that the sustainability of the higher education system is enhanced. And certainly for most students in Alberta, I would suggest it's easier to go to Calgary than it is to go to Saskatoon. You know, transportation, flights, driving times to Calgary for a lot of students in Alberta are significantly lower or easier than it is to get to Saskatoon. I've been to Saskatoon many times. It's a lovely city. It's not that easy to get to. And certainly Calgary is much more accessible for most Alberta students. Your second question was the ability to choose between programs. Like I said in my response to your first question, accessibility is really the key driver of this decision, as well as cost savings. So certainly for many students who are considering veterinary college, the choice is either between going someplace close to home or not attending at all. And by enhancing the number of spaces that are available close to home, we think that we'll be able to give more Albertans a choice to attend veterinary medical school. And we think that that is an overall benefit to the practice of veterinary medicine if we can increase the number of Alberta students who consider that as an option. With respect to rural mixed practice, and the number of graduates who will go into rural mixed practice as opposed to small animal practices in more urban areas. This was something that was of great concern to me in the department before we made this decision. And we actively consulted with the University of Calgary Veterinary Medical program, and they assured us that the number of graduates going into rural mixed practice will not decrease, and certainly the number of placements that students will be able to receive will be sufficient to provide them training in the rural settings. We certainly, and Dr. Singh, the Dean of the Veterinary Medical program there, has been actively engaged with rural communities, our livestock industry, to repeatedly provide the assurances that we will have sufficient veterinarians to meet the demands of rural communities and the livestock industry going forward. Your question about meeting the demand for veterinarians, it's important to remember that there will be no change in the number of veterinarians that will be trained, or the number of Alberta students that will be trained for practice in veterinary medicine. So regardless of whether we decided to continue on with funding the program at the WCVM and the UCVM, or shifting all of our funding to UCVM, the demand for veterinarians is not changed by that decision. Your fifth question was on the issue of consultation. Certainly we've heard a lot of feedback from veterinarians and representatives of the livestock industry, but it's important to balance that, I think, against the expectation of students for accessible, affordable education close to home. And by expanding the number of opportunities for students to attend veterinary college in Calgary rather than going all the way to Saskatoon, I think we're increase the likelihood of more Albertans being able to enter veterinary medicine practice, and that will enhance the practice of veterinary medicine in this province and put the livestock industry on a much more sure footing going forward. Your question around student placement training, I addressed when I answered the question to the rural mixed practice. Your question around capital expenditures. So shifting enrollments to the U of C will require a provincial one-time capital expenditure of approximately $7.2 million, which will be finalized after the U of C submits a detailed capital plan. This capital expenditure would be for equipment and expansion of the clinical skills building to include a large lecture theatre, expanded surgery suite, and clinical skills teaching areas. Question, I suppose, in the loosest sense of the word, around whether or not we're thumbing our noses at the government of Saskatchewan. That's certainly not the case. It's important to remember that our government is really investing in the students of Alberta and in the universities of Alberta. It's my belief that it's not the responsibility of the government of Alberta to investing in universities in other jurisdictions. And certainly with the redirection of dollars that previously went to the University of Saskatchewan into the University of Calgary, we are meeting Alberta's expectations of funding a high-quality system of higher education here in Alberta and providing opportunities for Alberta students close to home.
Minister, you still have 3 minutes if you have any other supplementals to add on.
Nope.
Okay. Dr. Starkey, just under precedent, typically we'd refer back to you if you have any other questions that you'd like to.
Well, Mr. Chair, if that's permissible, I mean, I thank the minister for offering up 2.5 minutes to provide some rebuttal. I will tell you that his responses reveal a shocking lack of understanding of veterinary education. Absolutely shocking. And had he talked to the Alberta Veterinary Medical Association, or had he talked to even the Western College of Veterinary Medicine, instead of just talking to the college that was going to be the recipient of the grandiose, or I shouldn't say grandiose, but the recipient of the additional funding from this college, of course they're going to say yes. Of course they're going to say we can handle it. Of course they're going to say we have the space. They're going to say no? I mean, to even suggest that is preposterous. And had the minister actually taken the time to consult with someone other than the recipient of that grant, he would have found that out. Now, with regards to it's easier to go to Calgary than to Saskatoon, Minister, have a look at a map. A student from Provost would rather go to Saskatoon. A student from Lloydminster would rather go to Saskatoon. Students from Grand Prairie, yes, it may be closer to go to Calgary, but a lot of these rural students want to go to a smaller community. They don't want to live in the great big city. They want to live in a smaller community. Saskatoon, about 200,000 people, is like a big town, and no, it has world-class facilities for transportation, a world-class international airport. It has a twinned highway that goes all the way from Lloydminster to Saskatoon and back again. So to suggest that there's an accessibility problem going to the University of Saskatchewan is preposterous. I went to the University of Saskatchewan 4 years, as did most students.
Traditionally, within estimates, we do refer to questions. So I was wondering
Okay,
if you have a question.
so let's go back to then the questions and the responses the minister gave. So he says that that they're going to enhance the number of spaces. Well, enhancing the number of spaces when you already have 450 students applying for the available 50 spaces, and expanding that number of spaces by exactly 0, minister, does nothing to enhance the number of spaces. And in fact, when you talk about costs and saving costs, because we only have 50 spaces, there are students that are accessing veterinary education in the Caribbean, overseas, in the United States, and coming home with debt loads approaching $250,000. If we expanded the number of veterinary spaces from 50 to 70, as continuing the funding the University of Saskatchewan would allow, that would mean 20 more students per year from Alberta would be able to get a cost-effective veterinary education right here in Canada and not have to go overseas.
We will now refer to the government caucus. Would you